Is it family? Do you need to see family? Do you need to move closer to family? These are all things that you need to ask yourself. Maybe you don't. Hey, sweet mama. Welcome back to another episode of Mama Mindset. I'm your host and creator, Amy Cawthron. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you allowing me to have some time with you and to be in your head and your heart a little bit today. If you're a returning listener, you know today's topic is going to be about the fourth element, the fourth foundational element to living a fulfilled life as a stay-at-home mom. And that element is love. If you are a first-time listener and this is a little confusing for you and you have no idea what I'm talking about in regards to foundational elements and living fulfilled as a stay-at-home mom, please take a second and pause this. And I really encourage you to go back and listen to episode 93, because episode 93 gives you some context as to what we're discussing today and why we're discussing love specifically and what foundational elements mean and everything that we're going to be talking about. If you want, you can power through and just see what it is I have to say and what it is I have to share. But if it does get to a point where you're kind of confused, because I will kind of touch on the other three elements that we've already discussed, I encourage you to go back and listen to that one. Again, it was episode 93, the four foundational elements to living a fulfilled life as a stay-at-home mom. And as a quick recap and a quick reminder for those who have already listened to those episodes, those four foundational elements are home, health, wealth, and love. And again, the purpose of having these elements, these foundational elements, is for us to reflect on them and to always have something to go back to in moments where we're overwhelmed, we're not feeling fulfilled, we are struggling in some kind of a way. We take the steps and look and do some investigative research and say, okay, is it something to do with my home? And in the episode that deals with home, I give you tips and ways on seeing if that is what is going on, if it has something to do with home, and then how to improve that. So then the next one is health. Is it something to do with your health? Are you not taking care of yourself? Are you not putting the good foods in your body? Are you not drinking your water? Intentional movement. So we also break that down even further. Wealth was the one we discussed previously. That was the last topic. And it talks about, that episode covers the two foundational aspects of building wealth and what you can do at home as a stay-at-home mom, and the importance of focusing on wealth, even though you are not the one bringing the primary income. So it is a little bit interesting, to have that conversation around wealth, or some people might think it's interesting. I don't. I think it's, or I guess some people might think that it's strange, but I think it's fascinating to go back and to still have these conversations around wealth, even though you don't have an income. I think it's incredibly important for us to be, the whole household, to be on the same page. So we've already covered those three: home, health, wealth. And today we're going to be discussing the last foundational element of love. So what I want to talk about in regards to love is, again, just these moments where we feel disconnected, where we feel like we're struggling, where we feel like we're overwhelmed. If you've done the steps and you've decided, no, I feel like we're good with home. I feel like, I'm taking the steps that we've discussed in my health. I feel like we're on the same page with wealth, and we're working towards that. So you've kind of worked your way through these elements, these foundational elements, and now we're at love. And you say, okay, let me just take a moment and see if my lack of fulfillment, my feelings of overwhelm, my feelings of disconnect have something to do with this element. And I want to break element down into a couple of different categories. I don't have like a 3-step process on this one, or any kind of like acronym, or, like I had the three S's when we were talking about home. I don't really have that for this one because I just didn't come up with one, to be honest. But I do want to break it down into four different categories and what those categories are going to be. And I'll discuss them a little bit in more detail, but we're not going to dive super deep into these aspects of love today, because I think that this gives us some space to dive deeper independently, as well as have further discussions in other podcast episodes as well. But I mean, love is such a big topic. Breaking it down into these other independent categories is such a big topic. And I don't want to take, I mean, we could talk about this for an entire day, honestly, because love is so deep. And so I'm just going to kind of touch on each of these four categories within love. And then I'll give you a few, not a lot of resources. And please remember that there is a plethora of information out there. There's a plethora of resources. These are just sort of starting points for you to look at, decide if these align with your values. And then from there, a quick Google search of those is going to give you other options of reading material, Instagram pages, other YouTube channels. I mean, so much other information out there. So I just want this to be a starting point, and I just want this to be a mindset intentionality behind love and a place for you to go and reflect on again when you're feeling overwhelmed or disconnected. So the four different categories that I want to talk about within love today are self, so self-love, love of yourself, spouse or partner, and children is number 3, and then others is number 4. And others includes friends, extended family outside of your household, all of mankind, your love of mankind, and then also love of God or love of a higher power, however you want to call it. So first, we're going to talk about self, but again, I'll just remind you it's self, spouse, children, and others. So I actually have to kind of write these down to make sure that I want to make sure that I stay very on track with the conversation that I have today, because it is very easy to get very involved or going even deeper in this conversation and in this topic. And I want to stay, concise and on track with it. So the first one that I want to talk about is self and your love of yourself, self-love. And this is why we talk about self-care. Okay. This is where this all stems from. You cannot go into this world, especially as a mother, as a nurturer, trying and attempting to love those around you, serving those who are wanting everything from you, if you do not have love of yourself. You cannot spread love efficiently and effectively and thoroughly and honestly unless you have a love of yourself. And in order to love yourself, you have to be kind to yourself. You have to take care of yourself. So you need to ask yourself when you're thinking you or feeling unfulfilled, am I loving myself? Is there a disconnect between my heart and myself? Is there something going on here? And then you say, am I taking care of myself? Have I allowed myself enough time to take care of myself for little acts of self-care, such as intentional movement, putting water in your body, fueling your body with foods that encourage physical positivity, encourage this mental clarity? Are you doing those things? And if you're not doing those things, well, right then and there, that is when you need to make a change. That is when you need to say, I need to make a change because I think this will cascade into the rest of my life. This will just continue to trickle and start adding in some fulfillment and clear up the brain fog and give me a higher purpose and clarity. So love your body. Take care of your body. You cannot love your body. And I know that people are going to disagree with me, but I feel very passionately that you cannot love your body unless you are kind to your body and unless you take care of your body. Now, this can go really deep into, we live in a society right now that just says, love your body no matter what, love who you are no matter what. And I agree with the fact that there are all different body types. There are all different personalities out there, and you absolutely should love yourself, but you have to work on yourself in order to create that love. It doesn't come organically. It comes by taking the time, pushing your body, challenging it, fueling it, doing these things where you say, wow, I'm so proud of my body. I cannot believe I did that. I'm so proud of myself for taking on this challenge. I cannot believe I did that. That is where self-love comes in. Self-care increases self-love. Okay. It doesn't just magically happen. It's not a mindset shift. It comes from action steps. It comes from you actually paying attention, listening, and working on improving your body. I know that there's some people that would disagree with me. It should just be a mental shift. It should just be a mindset of everybody loves each other and we all love our body and it's all singing kumbaya. But I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. And I'm speaking from personal experience. The times that I have loved my body are the times that I've cherished my body. The times that I've loved myself are the times that I've worked on myself, both mentally and physically. So physically, again, fueling your body, eating good foods, clean foods to the best of your ability. I know we're not perfect. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking to be intentional about it and to try. Hydrating your body. Water is so important. Water, 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 water. I know you guys are, I hope you're not getting tired of me saying that, because these are all reminders that we all could try a little bit harder at water and do a little bit better. But then we go right into movement, moving your body, simple things, getting outside, going for a walk. Okay. But mentally, how are you loving your body, your spiritual body? Best way to do this, reading books, reading self-development, personal development books, nonfiction books that work on your mind, okay? Help you shift your mindset, empower you to live your best life possible. That is a great first step, okay? Listening to this podcast, but it's not enough to listen to the podcast. You then have to take the action steps, okay? You actually have to work on it. So from there, love of self. If you're struggling in that area, those are some things that you can work on, and you can dive a little bit deeper and figure out, what do I need to do? And I'll even go to how is your personal appearance? Are you getting up and getting dressed every day, or are you walking around in your pajamas? How is your presentation of yourself to the world? Are you buying into this hot mess mom culture and not giving a shit about what you look like or how you act or how you behave? Then you're not going to feel good about yourself. So get up out of bed, put some clothes on, take a quick shower, slap on some mascara if that's you. If that's not you, that's fine too. And go out presenting your best self to the world. That is also how you create self-love. Okay. Be kind to yourself, empower yourself, be proud of yourself by taking action steps forward. So moving into the next one, I put self first. Let me go back a little bit. I put self first, not because I feel like any of these are more important than the other, but I do think there's a component of loving yourself that in order to love others, you have to love yourself. So I really wanted to talk about that one first, because if you were to measure these, I would say that loving yourself is the most important. And then from there, once you feel good about yourself and you love yourself and you find your confidence in yourself, you will be amazed at how that trickles into the rest of your life. So moving on, I have spouse next. I want to dive into that a little bit. And when we talk about love and with our spouses or our partners, it's impossible to not talk about sex and intimacy. I do think that that is an important component of it. But what I really want to focus on is the connection, because the connection has to come before the intimacy. And I'm just going to give a quick resource on this. And because I am not an expert, but a couple that I follow and I have had her come on the podcast before, and her and I had an incredible conversation, is Megan and Casey Caston, and they run Marriage 365. I will put a link to their resource, to their Instagram page and their website in the show notes. But they also have several books that you can purchase as well. And I'll talk about those a little bit later when I dive into some resources. But Marriage 365 is who I would consider the expert in this conversation. It's therapy. It's very approachable therapy for those who don't want to have therapy. It is online resources. It's a subscription-based program, and it is amazing. Megan and Casey share their incredible growth. They share lessons through their vulnerability and mistakes that they've made. And they've also had incredible conversations with experts as well. So it is impossible to talk about love in terms of spouse or partnership without diving into sex and intimacy. But again, I will repeat that in order to have sex and intimacy, you have to have connection. So if you are not connecting, if you are missing that link with your partner, your spouse, then you need to work on that. And there are several resources. I mean, hundreds. I shouldn't say several. There are hundreds of resources out there for you to do that. Like I said, Marriage 365. But when Brad and I, I'll just use us as an example. When we aren't good, then our lives aren't good. If we are not connecting, if things aren't firing on all cylinders, if we're disconnected, then our lives feel completely chaotic. It feels so much more difficult. Everything is harder. I just feel, both of us feel like it's this like square peg, round hole, and we can't quite get it figured out. And we both know about that moment when that starts happening, and it doesn't just happen overnight. This kind of happens over time and it builds up. And then you're just like, what the fuck is going on? What is going on? Why are things so difficult? Why aren't we communicating well? And it's a lack of connection. And we know it's time for a date night, or we know it's time for us to work on a project together. And some people would say, oh, hell no, we are not working on a project together. But for us, that really brings us together when we get to work as a team beyond managing our household and raising our children and just the everyday today stuff, a fun project, something we want to do on the house or something we want to do together. That is really what brings us together. But we know and we can feel the moment that we are disconnected. And it is incredibly important for us to have a conversation about it, have some time together, have a moment, have some space, whatever it is we need to do to get back to us. Maybe it's having sex. Maybe it is a moment of intimacy that we need. Maybe it is, a conversation without the kids, just for us to talk about future goals, 5-year plans. What are you interested in now? What are you doing in your life right now? What are you hoping to achieve? These are conversations that are really, really difficult to have when your kids are around. They're also really difficult conversations to have at night when you're tired. So setting aside the time to do that is really challenging. And that's why we try and do, as we can, regular date nights. So maybe you need some space and some time to connect on a deeper level than just talking about what projects you have going on with the kids, what birthday parties you need to take them to, the schedule, the to-do list, the checklist, work. Push those all aside and have some connecting questions. Have some deeper conversations, because then from there, then you're more likely, especially for women, especially for us as women, we have to have that connection before we have the intimacy. And that's not the case. That's not the case all the time when you're younger. You're just going for it. You're just, in that Twitter-pated phase, and, you can have sex all the time and be intimate all the time and do whatever. And you are thriving on those very passionate feelings. But as the years go on, your love becomes deeper and your connection becomes deeper. And the need to fill that void becomes more challenging. And that intimacy, that instant intimacy starts to dwindle, and you need the connection and you need that space to do that in order to have sex, be intimate, and have those physical moments. But they do work together. You have to have that connection and you have to have that physical intimacy. And it's up to you to determine, what is it that we need? Is it that we haven't been physical for a while? Is it that we haven't had any intimacy for a while? So what do I need to do to get to that point? Is it I need to find some more self-love, time for self-care, loving myself? Is it that we need to have deeper connections and conversations? Is it that you need to speak to him about boundaries or ways that he can help to alleviate some stress from you, so you are more prepared to go into an intimate situation? I can't answer those questions for you, but these are all things that you can start thinking about. And like I said, if you want to dive deeper into this, Marriage 365, Megan and Casey have some incredible opportunities for growth in this area, for reflection in this area. And I'll talk a little bit more about their resources a little bit later. But the next component that I want to talk about in terms of love is the love we have for our children. And it's not enough to just say, I love my children. And it's not enough to genuinely be present. Genuinely, it's not enough to be present. It actually takes intentionality it actually takes being intentional with the moments that you have when you're around your children. And people always kind of have this idea that, oh, as a stay-at-home mom, you should be incredibly connected to your kids and you should be spending all the time with them. Well, there's a difference between being connected with your kids and spending time with your kids, or just being present, being around them. It actually takes sitting down with them, having conversations with them. And as a stay-at-home mom, you can go through your entire day of being with your children and not actually have a conversation with them, not actually have intentional time with them. And I have been guilty of this on multiple occasions, just going through the motions, checking the boxes, thinking that I just need to make breakfast, make lunch, make dinner, because apparently our entire lives revolve around the next meal, or making sure the laundry's done, getting the dishes done, all of those to-do list things. Like, that's what I feel like I need to do, is just do, or, make a loaf of bread, if that's the hobby that I'm trying to dive into, but I'm using that to serve my family. Like, I get so caught up in these moments of doing that I forget to be present. And it takes effort, it takes pause, and it takes slowing down to realize that you need to pay attention to them and you need to listen to them and get present and honest and real and get down on the floor with them. If getting down on the floor and playing with your kids sounds absolutely nauseating, then I am here to tell you I totally agree. I am not great at it. I really am not. But I've talked about this in other episodes with other guests that we've had on the show, and it doesn't have to be an all-day thing. It can be moments, and it can be things that you love to do, or almost, I don't want to say compromise, but win-win type scenarios. Like, if you don't want to go jump on the trampoline, maybe you stand outside the trampoline and watch as the kids jump and put your favorite song on for them to jump to the beat. So now you're listening to your favorite music, you're watching them jump on the trampoline, and you're connecting in a very present way where it's win-win. It's not win compromise. Okay. So like I said, you can be home all day, but actually not connect with them. I asked the girls, what acts of love Brad and I do? What do we do that make you feel loved? What things do we do as parents when you feel the most loved, or that you wish we would do? I didn't even say what they wished we would do more, but in my mind, I was thinking like these are things that we can really remember and do more and be really intentional about. And we just spent like just a tiny bit of time on this. So I'm sure there's others, but they said hugs and kisses. That's a big thing for us. Physical affection in our family is really big. And Brad is really big on that because that's one of his love languages, which I will talk about in a little bit. But hugs and kisses, movie nights. The kids love to do family movie nights. And the reason why they love that so much is because it's a tradition and it's kind of a ritual for us to do on Friday nights. So they love family movie nights when we're all together, and we may not be having a conversation. We may not be connecting through our words or asking questions, but we're together and we're snuggling. There's, the physical affection in there also, the physical touch that fills them up in that way. There's a pause. We're slowing down. So Friday night movie nights are big for them. Sunday snuggles. I absolutely loved that they said this. And they both, when I don't remember who said it, it was either Gracie or Olivia. And then they both were like, that was one of their biggest things. They love that time, Sunday morning snuggles, when they get to come in, all the kids get to come in bed with us. We're sleeping in a little bit. Everybody gets to just talk and, I'll tickle the girls' arms or, tickle their cheeks, or we just hold each other and love each other. And it's very important to both of them, to all three of them, and they love it. And it fills us both up so much, by Brad and I. We love it. It is our time together as a family. And when we don't have that, it does feel like our weekends are disconnected or we're off. Hey, sweet mama, I just wanted to remind you about an incredible opportunity to take these conversations one step further, to find like-minded women who want to dive deeper and pursue the things that they're interested in order to best raise our future generation. And that is with my Mama Mindset Tribe Facebook group. You can find the link in the show notes below. If you haven't already joined the group, I highly encourage you to do so. This is a free resource where you can ask questions, seek guidance, look for help, celebrate the wins of the mindset shifts that you've had, the 1% changes that you had in up-leveling your life, big things, little things, all of it. I want to celebrate all of it. I want to share all of it. We're going to ask some big questions and some participation opportunities. So if you haven't already done so, please head on over. The link is in the show notes below and join the Mama Mindset Tribe on Facebook. I look forward to having you join our tribe. One of the things that I love to do with the girls, a couple of the things that I want to touch on that I have felt very connected to them with and very good about myself when we do these things is, I'm going to read a couple of them or talk about a couple of them, is read aloud time. I feel like our days are so much more successful when we have sit down, intentional read aloud time and we work through a chapter book, or we even just read aloud picture books from the library. Some of my favorite moments and some of my favorite memories are when the girls and I sit down and they get their coloring stuff out and I read. We're still working through the Little House series. So I'll read the Little House series or whatever other chapter book. We were working on some Ramona Quimby books for a while, but now that they're a little bit older, they love listening to these chapter books that they don't even need pictures, and they're 7 and 5. Olivia's almost 6. And we've been doing that for a few years, and it gives us such a moment of pause, and it gives us such a moment of connection, and they absolutely love it. So I make it really special. We get the coloring stuff out. I pour myself a cup of coffee. I'll even get them some cocoa or tea, and we'll just sit down and we'll make, a full half hour to an hour of this activity. And I love reading. They're getting good things, in their minds and in their hearts. And at the end of it, we feel connected. And honestly, at the end of the day, those are the days that I can say no matter what shit happened today, the craziness, the chaos, whatever, or a mistake that I made, something I said I shouldn't have said, maybe I lost my temper, maybe I didn't connect with the girls individually on a specific situation. And I feel like I didn't handle that as well as I should have as a mom. I didn't make the dinner I had set out to make. All of these things that can go wrong in our days that we start to beat ourselves up over. I know I sat down with the girls and had read aloud time with them. And it is something that is so beautiful and important to me. Other things that I've done is coloring. I'll sit down and I'll color with the girls individually. There for a while, we were doing mommy time. That's getting a little more difficult with with Lily being awake, and her nap times are shorter. But when she had these big nap times, I would do mommy time for Gracie and Olivia, and we would have about a half hour of just mommy time. And so that's another thing that you can do if the time and the space allows for it, and you can make that a priority. Again, you have to make that a priority if that's something you need to do within your life. You have to say yes to that and no to other things. Walks alone. We've had the girls come up to us and say, I want some mommy time or I want some daddy time this weekend. And we do our best to respect that and provide that for them without going out and spending a bunch of money. So some of the things that we've done is walks on our local bike path, just with each of the girls independently. So I'll take one of the girls by myself and Brad will stay with the others. We've gone down to the bike path. We'll go over to our local store and get some donuts and sit at the park and eat donuts and drink coffee or, hot cocoa, if that's what they have. There's just creative things that you can do without spending a lot of money and having those moments. So coloring, walking together, just the two of you, adventuring, just the two of you. Brad has taken the girls out for breakfast. He does breakfast dates with them on occasion. So whatever works for you within your household, those are just a couple of things that we find a lot of value in, but it's going to take intentionality, right? You're going to have to say, have I connected with them? Have we spent this quality time together? And what are we all missing? What do we need? What do I need to do with my children or for my children? And it doesn't have to be this servant mentality. You don't have to do. It's sitting down and just being present and listening to them and talking to them. So from there, I want to move into the last one, and then we'll kind of go over some resources and some other details within these. But the last one is others. And like I mentioned before, this covers friends, family, mankind, and love of a higher power, God, whatever you call it within your household. Friends, family, mankind, God, or a higher power. This is a lot that goes into others, but they aren't quite as important, in my opinion. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? Love of God and love of a higher power for some people is the most important component of love, the most. That is not something that we agree with in our household. Okay. So I put it in others, and then you can prioritize others however you see fit. But for the sake of what I'm talking about here, we're going to put it in others and in the others category. So friends, let's just talk about that one really quick. When was the last time you went out with a friend or did something or called a friend or texted a friend or messaged a friend? There is an element of love that goes into friendship that is beyond your household. Women, stay-at-home moms need friends. You need a community of like-minded women. It gets very, very, very lonely and isolated being at home. I am not naive to that. I live in rural, out in the middle of nowhere, Idaho. I mean, I don't feel like it's in the middle of Idaho, but people would come here and just be like, there's really nothing around here. And so it's very isolated. And if I am not intentional about connecting with friends or being in the community or doing something outside of my home, then we get incredibly isolated. It's easier for us to stay home. It's easier for us to be isolated than it is for us to actually take steps and be outside of the house. So Friends, do you need to get out? Do you need to experience friends? Do you need to message somebody or connect with somebody? I know it's challenging in the midst of the pandemic to find those connections and find those moments. Is it family? Do you need to see family? Do you need to move closer to family? These are all things that you need to ask yourself. Maybe you don't. Maybe you live away from family for a variety of reasons we're not going to go into in this podcast episode. Maybe what you need in terms of love is less family. Okay. What? That's a little bit of a mindset shift or something that we people don't always talk about. Maybe you need to take a step back and go take time to reflect just on your immediate family within your household and have less time with the extended family or less time with friends. This is what people call boundaries. Okay. If your boundaries continue to be broken, then maybe you need to work on that in order to develop more love, in order to create more love. If you're starting to feel resentful of your family, of your friends, is it because of a boundary issue? Is it because you haven't established boundaries for yourself and you can't put those on paper? So you then cannot go forward into establishing boundaries with others. So you need to decide if it's something to do with that. There's a lot of books on boundaries out there. Also, Brene Brown is the queen of boundaries and vulnerability. And so I really encourage you to check out some resources surrounding that also. And I'm going to go right into mankind. What is your mindset around people? What is your mindset around, strangers, society, this world that we're living in? Are you finding yourself lost in love of others, a lack of faith in other people, in human beings, in your community? I know that the pandemic and, with COVID and the restrictions and everything that's going on, there is a huge amount of distrust that's going on in our world right now. The elections played into all of this as well. And there is a polarizing level of distrust. And I feel that. And we are working on that within our home also. But a great way to address this is to turn off the news, to restrict the amount of things that you are seeing on social media or the internet. What are you watching? What are you reading? What are you absorbing yourself with it? Is it all negative? Is it all controversial? Is it all toxic? Because that's what you're going to see in the world. Okay. That is going to be your perception of society, of humans. And I'm here to tell you, there are incredibly wonderful human beings out there, but you have to be out in the world and being vulnerable in order to experience it. Now, let me tell you a story. We were in Seattle at the Children's Hospital for Olivia, and I was so fucking sick of the bullshit that is going on there. People in general, and I'm sorry if you're from Seattle and you're a wonderful person, and I'm going to get to that part of the story in a minute, but people in general, when we were there, weren't very kind. Okay. Everybody was keeping to themselves. Nobody really wanted anything to do with us or anybody else for that matter. They were what I would just call selfish. Okay. And you can't tell if people are even being kind because everybody has their face covered up. And, it is so weird when you're there to say, I have to pick to actually go pick your food up for your family and your daughter when you've been at the children's hospital outside because you're not allowed to be in a building because your values are different than somebody else's. Okay. So heartbreaking. And I was over it. My faith in Seattle, my faith in mankind and the future was like dwindling. It was like hanging on by a thread. And then Brad's pickup got broken into at the hotel, which we were staying at, to take my 5-year-old to the hospital. Now, fucked up. Okay. It is a messed up situation. I was so hurt. Brad was so hurt. That was a terrible day. We had just found out we lost one of our good friends. And that was it. I was like, I want nothing to do with this place. I never want to come back here. I'm never staying here. And so, we couldn't even call the police because they don't have enough law enforcement to take care of that problem. That problem is so low. Brad's entire window was broken out and we had a couple of items stolen. His whole window was broken out. We had to drive 7 hours back home. In our minds, we're like, we need some help. Like, we need to file a police report. We need to do something. They won't come. They won't even answer the phone call. And if they do, they won't come anyways, because it's so low on their list of priorities. Now, Brad was trying to get the window fixed. He was trying to maybe tape it up or do these things. And I said, why don't we just call like an auto body place and see if they have the special paper or plastic you can put over it? So I got a hold of this little mom and pop place that was about a mile from our hotel. And let me tell you, my faith in mankind was absolutely restored by one act of kindness from another person. He fixed our window. He apologized just for what we had gone through, and that the city that he grew up in and loved so much has turned into what it was. He owns and has operated this. It's a second generation auto body place. And so he doesn't work with insurance. He works directly with his customers to provide the best service that he can possibly provide with the best cost that he can possibly provide. And he did this all for free. The woman, when I called on the phone, was incredibly kind. And then the gentleman, when we got there, interacted with Olivia, shook Brad's hand. Couldn't have been a more incredible, dynamite, kind person. So that took us, again, being vulnerable and trying to trust somebody and putting ourselves out there and hoping and praying that this stranger could help us. We were fully prepared to pay for it. And he didn't charge us anything. So I went across the street. I got myself a Starbucks for the ride. And I bought everybody donuts. I bought them all donuts and said, thank you, and reciprocated that kindness. And our faith in mankind, our faith in humanity was restored by one act of kindness. So you can act with kindness to strangers. That could save somebody else. That could shift somebody else's perspective. But if you're struggling with that, turn off the news, turn off all of that toxic crap that's going on, and put yourself out there. Go into your actual immediate community and see what happens. You will find somebody who will hold a door for you, who will return the shopping cart for you when you have 3 kids in tow. You will find somebody who says something nice or who smiles at you. Because if you can put that out into the universe, if you can put that love out there, then you will get that back. So the last one, speaking of the universe and a higher power, is love of higher power, love of God. And this love and trust in how things will work out. There is a purpose. There is a reason for all of it. And if you can't understand that and grasp that, there are, resources that you can turn to. I mean, a lot of people turn to the Bible. That is not something we turn to in our home, but it is a great resource for people who can use that, or you've never explored it. Why not try it? There is this sense of belonging, this sense of purpose, and this sense of understanding when you start to feel this spirituality, when you start to have a love of this higher power and a love of God, if that's what you want to call it. Jen Sincero in her book, You Are a Badass, has, all of these examples of alternative ways of naming this, but she calls it source power. And, we just call it a higher power. And one of the ways that we feel this connection, and one of the rituals that we do within our household, and I've mentioned this before, is we always give a blessing at our meal times. And it's something that brings us together. It gives us this love, this appreciation, and this gratitude for this intangible thing, a belief and a sense of something that you can't see, but you just know that there's a purpose. You just know that spreading this, energy and this positivity, you're going to get it back. And it makes you feel good. It makes you happy. It makes you feel good. It makes you understand. And it is a controversial topic, and I don't want to get into it a whole lot in this podcast episode, but that is the fourth aspect of others that I did want to at least touch on, that you can take a look at and say, am I not feeling as fulfilled because of my love of these other things or these others, friends, family, mankind, and God, or a higher power? Are these some of the things that are missing links within my life? Are these some of the things that I can look back on and work on and dive into a little bit? So one of the things that I want to talk about really quick in terms of references, resources, and tools is in terms of your spouse and your children, or even others when it comes to friends and family, is the 5 love languages. This is an incredibly popular, prominent idea, concept, book. There's a beautiful book on it. So the 5 love languages basically breaks down how each person feels love and also gives love. And I'm not going to go into all the details on it, but there is a quiz that you can take online to determine this is how you respond to love. These are the ways that you feel fulfilled, and these are the ways that you fulfill others and demonstrate love. So the 5 love languages is the first resource that I want to talk about. And that just really gives you an understanding and a basis for your spouse, friends, family. And they actually also have one for children. So it's the 5 love languages of children. Now, the authors of these are Gary Chapman for the 5 love languages, and then Gary Chapman and Ross Campbell wrote the 5 love languages of children. So these are great resources for you to, like I said, have a better understanding of love and how people reciprocate love, how people demonstrate love, how it fills their cup, how it fills their buckets. The next resource that I want to go into, I already mentioned, is Marriage 365, Megan and Casey Caston. But one of the books that they offer is incredible. And I know we talked about connecting on date nights with your spouse. I've mentioned this in other podcasts before, but Brad and I have purchased it and we absolutely love it. If we go on a date, we usually take it with us and we work through, 1 or 2 of the questions just for fun. It's really designed to be an entire year's worth of questions and deepening your marriage and your relationship. That's why it's called 365. So it's 365 connecting questions for couples. So you can do a question a day. You can pick and choose and use and pull out of it what you want and when you need it. But I love these questions. I absolutely love them. And every time Brad and I have spent the time and worked through them, we always feel like, as much as we know each other after 15 years of being together, we always learn something new about each other. And so I love that aspect of it. The next one that I want to talk about, the next resource, is the Love Dare. Now, this does have a Christian component to it with Bible quotes in it as well. But I do feel like the basis of this and the components of it are very, very helpful. And it's something you can work through on your own, or it's something that you could work through together. But don't be surprised if your spouse isn't interested in working on this. Okay. Don't be surprised if this is something that you have to dive into independently first and make some changes first, or work on the mindset, work on your approach first before they come on board. Okay. That's talked about a lot, is that you have to work on yourself first, and you cannot force other people to change or to be on board immediately. But if you know through your research that you're lacking in fulfillment when it comes to love with your spouse and that connection, then you start. Then you take steps forward and see how that goes. They also have one for children. So the Love Dare, which by the way, the Love Dare is, I don't know if I mentioned this, the Love Dare is written by Alex and Stephen Kendrick. And then they also wrote Love Dare for Parents. So that is a great resource if you're needing to connect to your children, dive a little bit deeper in those relationships and have a better understanding of them as well. And then always, please don't ever forget that there's professional help out there. I know I don't talk about that in terms of tangible resources that you can take away or purchase or go to a website on, but there is a level of help needed at times that these resources can't quite get to. Okay. They can't quite cut it. And I want you to know that it's 100% okay for you to get professional help if needed. Maybe that's professional help for your children. Maybe that's professional help for you. Maybe that's professional help for you and your husband, you and your spouse. If you're struggling and you feel like you've tried a number of things, or you feel like the issues that you have go significantly deeper than some of the topics that we've just barely touched on in this podcast, please don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed to get the help that you need, to seek professional help, because there's experts out there who deal with this all the time and they have incredible breakthroughs. Marriages have these incredible breakthrough moments and they come out so much stronger and better and prepared for the rest of their lives. So that is something that Brad and I have always said. If one of us needs help, therapy is definitely an option. If we are struggling with our connection and we've worked on ourselves, we've attempted to do this together, and there's still something going on, therapy is a direction we will go. And if one of us wants to participate in therapy independently, okay. If one of us says, this is very important to me and I want to work on this together, then we've made it a rule in our house that we need to be open to that we need to be open to that growth and that need for each other. So I know it's not always perfect in that way for everybody else. I'm just using us as an example in just like the types of conversations that we have. There are so many different dynamics in relationships and there are so many different dynamics in marriages. But the point of this podcast is to take a look at love and then figure out what aspect of love you need help with or fulfillment in, or if you're lacking in something, and then use your personal morals, values, beliefs to dive a little bit deeper and get the help that you need, whether that's help you're doing yourself, whether that's help you're seeking from an expert. So I hope you found this helpful today. Please don't forget to share this with another mama friend. As a reminder, this is our last Monday episode before we have our name change. So the next episode, after this one, will be an incredible conversation with an expert. And the episode after that, which will be the following Monday episode, will be all about the big announcement and rolling out the new name, the new title for this community. But what we're doing is still going to be the same. Really, nothing else is changing. The look of it's just changing a little bit. And we have a new name, which I'm really excited about. And I'll dive more into that in that episode when we release that. And you guys can get a little bit of a better understanding as to why we changed the name. So thank you so much for listening today, sweet mama. I hope you found this incredibly helpful. I absolutely loved this theme of January and these 4 foundational elements. These are elements that I will continue to go back to as we move forward with the new name and we move forward with additional podcast episodes. All of the things that we talk about will fall under the category of one of these foundational elements. So it hopefully will help you gain more resources in home, health, wealth, and love in order for you to live the most fulfilled life that you possibly can as a stay-at-home mom. I want that for you. I want to give you the tips. I want to give you the tools and the resources for you to turn to click on, to find, and to dive deeper so that you can go forward and raise the future generation in the best way that you possibly can by focusing on yourself and living a life that you absolutely love, finding joy, finding fulfillment, finding empowerment, and this idea of value and self-worth as a stay-at-home mom. Because honestly, and I'm going to keep saying this, your role is the most important role in the entire world. And I hope you don't take that lightly. And I encourage you to continue to move forward day by day, step by step, and build a life that you absolutely love. So thank you so much for listening today, sweet mama. I look forward to talking to you all again very soon.